Okay. Well, as I was saying, my name is Cristian Stival, and I'm a tournament pro and coach for more than 1,700 players. I belong to the Team GG as a professional, and I'm the CEO of CS Academy, where we train a lot of grinders like you every day. So I hope you enjoy this class. And I want to start this class with uh, this. What would you do here? Please let me know in the chat. Another funny guy. Just let me know. I'm gonna kick this guy. Just a second. Done. So what would you do here? Ranieri Ferreira says flat, 3-bet, follow call, all in, call. William depending. Okay. Just a few more. Call by Herman Santoni. Welcome, my friend Herman. 3-bet call. Okay. I guess we're receiving some different answers, but the thing here is, and what this class is about, that the answer can be correct or a serious mistake depending on the moment of the tournament you're in. And that's why we're talking today, that optimal ranges contests evolve throughout the tournament. Sometimes we can do something that is EV plus in chips, but at the same time, we're losing money, right? And that's kind of funny, right? So we're going to talk about preflop ranges, where these are the select hands that we choose before the flops. And I would like to think this as our army, right? Sometimes one have a stronger army than the other, and playing with solid ranges is the foundation of your game. Okay. This, for example, is an opening range of cutoff, and the big line is defending. So we can see this as our troops, and the strength of our army will determine your aggressiveness. Another funny guy. Shit. This is gonna be tough, guys. Brian, do you know how to clean the screen? Sorry. That. So as I was saying, the strength of our army will determine our aggressiveness and who takes the advantage and the initiative. So we're going to start with GPV. That is our starting point. That is the strategy that aims to maximize the amount of chips that we win. This strategy that we see here in GTO Wizard, I think everybody knows GTO Wizard, where we put here like GPV is this is what I'm talking about. The only important thing here is to win chips, right? It doesn't take count that we are in a tournament and we're playing for money, right? For the dollar EV. So every strategy that we're looking here is aimed to win the greatest possible amount of chips. And it's based solely on the effective stacks, right? So that's why we see here that all the stacks are the same, right? And so when we look here, the range GPV, for example, 25 BBs, look at the UTG1 open race and what the button should do against this. here says the hijack, but it's the UTG one. So look at this, that this looks like a linear range where we open a lot of hands, a lot of speculative hands, and the bottom here is responding with like calling with the medium hands, some traps, and we're three betting all in some hands and non all in some other hands. And with this, our specific hand that was ace jack offsuit, we're looking at it like a pure call. Okay, so in GPV we can say that with ace jack off we can call and we can flat in this situation. And we're gonna talk about ICM. That this could be like a whole class, but we can start saying that this converts the value of our chips into monetary value, and the aim is to maximize the money we won. And there's no direct relationship. Sometimes more chips don't always mean more money. That's what I was saying before. And there are some factors that will impact our ICM strategy. First of all, the payout structure. When we have like a flat strategy, the ranges would be tighter. And when the prices are top heavy, like most of the tournaments, we can lose our ranges, but we have to be careful. The stack sizes too, who's covering whom, right? If I cover someone, I can play much more aggressive. And otherwise, when they cover me, I have to play much more tight. The bounties also plays like a negative ICM and have some relaxing effect on the ranges, but this is part of other class. And the tournament phase, of course, affects our decisions. We're gonna see how. And this is a very important graphic that I would like to show you, that when the tournament starts, this is the bubble factor. I wanna talk about this during this class, but we can see this as how ICM evolves during tournament. So the first part we can see here, when 50% of the field left, like half of the players being eliminated, we can see that we have to start taking count of ICM, right? And we have like the first pick, like we see here on the money bubble, is very relevant. Everyone is fighting to reach the money. So everyone has it's very risky to bust. So when you have like big stack, you can put much more pressure on the medium and low and low stacks. So we have a very important ICM effect here. When the bubbles burst, the ICM decreases rapidly because all the money prices are kind of flat and all players are trying to ladder up, but the ICM, as you can see, is going down and start to go up again, like we are getting to the final table bubble where we have the second strong ICM peak. There are big changes in prices and also in visibility. Everyone wants to be like in final table photo. So medium stacks are under pressure and the chip leader can dominate very, very big. And on the final table, as we can see, start to decrease with every elimination, and the strategy should be adjusted after each burst. Every time the player busts, the ICM gets lower and it reverts to complete chip EV on the heads up, because the only objective is to win chips. Okay. We're going to talk about bubble factor or risk premium. That is something you can see here when you put these ranges. Taking here, for example, near bubble, this icon appears, and when we put here this, we start to see the interaction of each one against each other, right? For example, if I put near the bubble and I choose any situation, I can see here, for example, when a medium stack confronts a big stack that covers him, look how high is this bubble factor. I'm going to explain it now, but you can see the effect that it has when you're close to the bubble, and that's why it's in red, and it's lower for this guy that is covering everybody, but also has an effect. And this will change the whole ranges of everybody, okay? And that's why when we have this risk factor or bubble factor in 1, we're playing pure chippy V. We're gonna have a balanced play. It's like we're not risking. We don't have like a big confrontation factor. And when this value is above 1, there's an ICM pressure, and we have to play a conservative play where losing chips hurts us more than winning chips, okay? And when we have this 50% of the tournament is when we start thinking about ICM. And when we have more than 2, is in these extreme situations like the bubbles, okay? Nacho Barbero says ICM is for poor people. Yeah, I think Nacho Barbero is joking about that. He plays very good ICM. So are you understanding me until this point? Just let me know on the chat. Okay. Okay. So summarizing what I said, these bubble factors are like a pressure measure. So it will tell us how much more it hurts to lose than it helps to win in empty test some chips. So we can say that it's like a survival factor, right? And we'll have the higher the risk premium is, the tighter our ranges should be to justify confronting other guy. See? We have to look at these bubble factors before checking the ranges to start to see how they change with this, considering this, right? So there are 3 types of strategic advantages. First, we know, everybody knows the net advantage, the equity advantage, and now we're gonna see this risk advantage. It says, for example, I'm gonna get back to this. This guy that have, when he confronts against this guy with 125 blinds, we can see that he has 1.68, when this guy confronting with the same guy, this one, has 1.15. So this guy has a risk advantage against the other, so he can pressure him a lot. And so this risk advantage is the ability to take risk against a specific opponent. And it will exist when our risk premium against an opponent is lower than us, right? And a substantial difference will create an advantage that we can enhance. So, returning to our example, let's check the difference when 25 of the field is left, right? We can see that the button, in the example we had ace jack off, has 1.4 risk advantage, while the other one has 1.29. So how will this affect our ranges? So we see, first of all, what you should think when you are in the button, when a hand like this. First, you can see that when this guy opens, he has to look that in the cutoff he will have the chip leader, so he have to be a little bit tighter. That the button is covered by UTG1 and a small blind, so blockers start to become more relevant, as we will see in the next slide. This is what I was talking about the risk advantage. And what I wanted I want to left to you in this class is that we should think this way, that even before starting to look how the ranges change, we should start thinking about this. You will not remember, of course, this number, and you will not have this on when you're playing live, but you should see that you have much more to lose than this guy who is covering you. So this is our first thing. And now let's check how the UTG1, the guy who is opening, change when have GPV, and now that 25% of the field is left. First of all, we can see that you can look like graphically that he starts opening more blocker hands that he is not opening here, because the blockers became much more important. And these suited connectors lose a lot of value. As you can see here, we shouldn't open them anymore. And the small pairs also lose value. So you can see here that you put this blocker hands and you stop playing these speculative hands. And as I said, we will start to prioritize the blockers like ace-x suited, ace-x off-suited, and sometimes these off-suited hands too that blocks the jamming part of the range of the opponent. Okay? And the guy who's responding here, and check it out that we are looking 25% left. So even in this moment, we're far away from the bubble. And you can see how this range is so different than this one. Even when the ICM pressure is not that high, okay? So we can see that the calling range is much tighter. You see, here we're calling 14%, and now we have to call almost nothing, 3.8%. Here we see that we had all-in 3-bets. Here, 0% all-in, right? The total 3-bet will increase, and the range is much more polarized. You see that we have the strong hands, and we have some bluff hands, where here it isn't that way a lot, right? And what happened with our specific hand, the ace jack off, that before we had to call, like we see here, now our hand is a pure 3-bet bluff. Why 3-bet bluff? Because we are 3-betting, and if the guy goes all in, of course we fold, right? And why we do this? Because we have a strong blocker plus fold equity that becomes much more important under the effects of ICM. Okay? How are we going? Good? Any question? Good. Okay. Maybe we open the questions on the end of the class, but the idea is that the ICM is starting to tighten in our ranges, every ranges, right? Mostly the players who are covered that have to play fewer hands. We start to be more polarized, as we see. The fold equity is very important here. So the fold equity, of course, is the ability to make your opponent fold, and survival gains priority. Yes. So less preflop shoving, like in the previous example, for example, is 0%. So what happens in the ITM bubble, right? The money bubble. Again, compare this graphic, like looking at it far away, right? We're not seeing the numbers exactly, but I will get back to the other one. Look, the colors, orange, yellow. And now, when we are in the bubble, we start to see very, very much red squares. Why is this? Because the bubble factors are up to, look, 2.08, much more than double, right? So we can see here is that the medium stacks are getting like a lot of risk factor or bubble factor against all the guys who covers them. And also the smaller stacks are the ones who has the highest risk premium, right? So everyone should play tighter, except for the chip leader, of course. No jam in ICM because it's higher variance with this tax depth. Yes, that's right, because for you to understand this, you should think like, for you, it's much more expensive and bad for you to bust on the tournament than winning these chips. So when you put that, compare that, it's much more worth for you what you lose than what you can win, right? So here in this spot, in the bubble, it's much worse. So short stacks will suffer more, and this one would have increased the most their bubble factors. So a large part of their equity is to get to the min cash. Because sometimes we hear guys saying, oh, I don't care about min cash. I don't care about ICM. I won the first prize and that's all. Well, when we play poker to win money, we have to understand this, because this is what we like give to our bankroll a healthy winning until we win like a big score, right? A medium stack, of course, we suffer, but because they don't want to fight with the chip leader, much more when they are short stacks, but they will have less pressures in this bubble than the short stacks, okay? So let's see how it changed. And we can see for the first guy that covered us, for him, it also changed a lot, right? He was opening 20%, when 25% left, he's opening like a little bit less, and now he's opening more. Why? Because he covers almost the whole table, except for the chip leader. But even though he opens more hands, the hands that we're opening are very different. See, again, the offsuit hands with blockers, with aces blocking, and this kind of hands are opens where here there were pure faults. Again, the small pairs and the suited connectors and the speculative hands, we don't open them anymore, because this here's where the ICM magic begins. We can play more aggressive covering the other positions, and the fear factor starts now. That's why we said that it's our greatest ally, because permits us to open a wider range. And this is very, very important, because everybody studies with GTO Wizard the GPV ranges. I want you to get from this class that memorizing a fixed range is a big mistake, because as we can see in 3 different stages of the tournaments, the ranges are completely different, even for opening ranges. Imagine for our response, and let's check that out. When we see here, compare the first range, the GPV range, against now on the bubble. It had changed a lot when 25% left, but now, check this out. 14% call against nothing call. You see, the strategy is the same game, but it's so different. The way we have to play in this moment. He said 25% left is bad, is bubble here. So let's check this out. Here, we don't have shoves, except for this hand, but in this kind of situations, I recommend you not to shove anything. The 3-bet becomes more linear. You see, what I said before, here we are polarized. What is polarized? That you have the top range and the bluffs, a lot of bluffs. You see, but it's not the other stronger hands. We bluff hands that we don't care folding fast to the shove. But here you can see all the hands are together. This is what is called like a linear range, where we choose strongest hand to 3-bet with powerful blockade. Yeah, what is Rainier is saying is correct. And when you study spots like this, your EV will increase a lot because check this against this. If you study here in chip EV, you're playing very wrong when you are on a bubble situation, for example, on a 25 left situation, on a 2 tables left situation, and even more on a final table, right? So if you look here at the numbers, our 3-bet increased a lot, but not all in, right? And the shape changes a lot. Here is polarized, here is linear. The call is almost completely eliminated, paying no longer worse. Just a few hands, but I recommend not to call anything. The thing is like putting a threat on our opponent, non-all-in. And of course, we have a lot of hands that were folding here, right? And I like to visualize this like a Cold War. I threaten you, but I don't go all in, right? And ICM dictates that the value of not being eliminated is so high that the AV of a marginal call becomes negative. So what happened with our ace-jack off? In the bubble, you see here, as here was a pure call, here's a pure 3-bet bluff, and here we start to fold our ace-jack off. I choose this example because I look this kind of funny, but look how different we have to play. Why? Because ace-jack off, why we fold ace-jack off? Well, first of all, doesn't have blockers to the strongest hand, the open raising hand. Post-flop, we can get complicated if we get the call. So it's too bad for a call. It's too bad for a 3-bet call. And it's too good for a 3-bet fold, right? That's why we start folding it. It's not strong for value and not bad enough to bluff with a blocker. So ace-jack off is a typical hand that seems good, but under ICM is no man's land. Neither value and no clear bluff. That's why it's often folded, right? You see, range on right ICM 25% too, same as middle right. No. The range on the right is the bubble, as I said before. Here's bubble, okay? Please don't get confused with this. I have to correct it. As edges sweet, let's go flat because we don't want 3-bet. Exactly, and it's a hand that plays very good post flop, much more than ace-jack off. So with this, we start to see that we choose ace-jack off, but you can see any hand that will change a lot. For example, look at the small pairs. Let's see, for example, a pair of 7s. When you're in GPV, 7, 6, even 8s. When we start to get some ICM factors, you can start with 8s, it's okay, but 7s, you start to fold it. 6s is pure fold, 5s too, and look here, much more. Even you have to fold pair of 8s. 9s, you have to. We started to transform it in a bluff. So, well, that's what I want to show you. Let's go to the next one. So, with GPV, like summarizing what I said before, we have wider calls, linear raises, and many shoves. Our ace-jack was a call. Post-bubble, we have more folds, less shoving, polarized ranges for our 3-bet bluffs, and ace-jack off is now a 3-bet bluff. And near the bubble, the ranges get tighter, there's almost no shoving, almost 0% calls, a threatening with a more linear range and folding a lot. And our ace-jack off starts to be a fold, okay? Well, let's see another example. No, I'm not talking about the same example as before, but I want to show you even in 50% of the field left, just the half, of the guys on the tournaments were eliminated, and we start to see differences in, for example, an open race from hijack and 3-bet from the bottom. So look at the difference, even when we are very, very far away from the bubble. Here in GPV, we flat a lot of hands, 17.5%, here 5% less. But the important to look is a lot of suited connectors, a lot of this King X suited. Here, all these hands are full. The flat range is reduced significantly. We give priority to our hands with good playability, right? Like this we see here. We start to play a much more 3-bet or fold strategy, like we saw in the examples before. We start to our light 3-bet, especially if they are blocking the stronger hands, or we fold, but we start to call with speculative hands. I mean, with some hands we're still calling because the ICM is not that high with 50% left, but what I will want you to see is that it's good to realize that even when the ICM is low, the ranges really change in the shape and the actions, okay? So the philosophy behind this change is that the flat will start to risk our stack because we're going to have to play post-flop under ICM pressure, and the 3-bet will pressure the opponent who can't defend widely. You all have to check against whom are you playing, because if the other guys are not taking account of ICM, sometimes you can reduce your bluff hands, okay? So this is also very important. The second example I want to show you is ICM near the bubble. This, if you take the average of these stacks, maybe you can see 20 big blinds, but here the cutoff is opening with 22, and we are on the bottom with 26. The effective will be 22, and look at this difference. Again, now near the bubble is much higher, right? But in this strong ICM context, platings become a weak line that leaves you vulnerable. That's why look at the calling ranges. 8.3%, almost 0. So we had 10% all-in, and now we have a lot of all-in and 3-bet, right? Because why we have higher? Because we cover, right? So it's very different than the example before. And the polarization, the 3-bet of 4, puts pressure on the opponent and avoid the dominated spot. This is what we're trying to avoid post-flop under the ICM pressure, okay? So it's better to call than 3-bet to avoid a possible 4-bet with a complicated hand like when the bubble factor is very high, like in a money bubble, of course. Okay. And the third example I want to give you is this big blind defense. So on a final table, where we can also see that the big blind has very high ICM effects, and our ranges will have to change a lot. For example, in a 10% left field, we're on the money now, but you see against an UTG1 open race, we defend a lot, right? We defend 46.8% of our range calling, and we have a linear 3-bet range with our strongest hand. And we call all our suited hands, we 3-bet the good ones, we 3-bet some blocker hands, but our range is very, very large. And on the final table, look at this. The changes are very, very high. Look at the calling range. look at the 3-bet range, and we fold 80% of our hands. So it's the same game, but it's a different strategy. And this shows us how much we have to adapt our strategies, or we sometimes are winning chips doing the GPV strategy, but we're burning money, right? So the closest you are to the final table or big pay jumps, the more selective your BB defense should be. And the chips, this is what I was saying before to answer the question of the guy who asked this, that the chips gained are worth less than the chips lost. And this is a very important concept. So play tight passive without initiative and aggressive with hands that do want to go all in. Okay? Good. So what changes do we have to do against 3-bet with advantage? When we have advantage, like we cover the other ones. There is a tendency to tighten the range, showing is reduced in favor of non-all-in 4-bets again. Our calling range becomes much more condensed. Condensed is like medium hands, right? And focus on hands that would play well post-flop, like the ace-jack suited that you said before. And when we have a big advantage, flat calling is drastically reduced. Again, we should threaten our opponents, for example, with a polarized 4-bet, with blockers, and doesn't have to be all in, okay? And when we defend against 3-bet with disadvantage, with risk disadvantage, we have to respond much more tighter. Our flat calling almost disappears sometimes with no sense with the speculative hands, because the implied odds decrease drastically too. In multi-way, as a general thumb, the ranges in multi-way pots also tighten up under ICM. There is less speculation. You have much more to lose. That's the concept. There's less squeezing as a bluff with suited broadways, more with polarized range. Always have to think about blockers, right? When we have ICM. And if you have this advantage against multiple players, we have to cut our range in half. So caution would be the key here. Okay? Well, this summarizing everything, what I would like you to take from this class is to change and commences to have like this study process. First, we review our TPV range. Okay, we said, right here in this spot, let's see the 35 BBs is effective. So we're gonna see the ranges, okay? It's the baseline, okay? It's good to study this because we're gonna have the correct answer at the beginning of the tournament, for example, right? Next to that, step number 2 is identify the scenario. So we look to a similar spot to yours in GTO Wizard. For example, let me show you this. Here we said, okay, we're gonna start. No, this is ICM. Here, we said we studied the GPV spot, right? GPV more because the real scenario is this. So no, not this one. The other one I showed before. Let me show the presentation. I'm gonna go back to the beginning. And when I show the first hand to you, I show here that in this situation, the GPV situation of this is 25 lines against 33. So I have to go GPV in 25 lines, right? Because it's our effective stack. And then I go to the real scenario with different stack sizes that now GTO Wizards had a lot of scenarios where we can check our real hand. And what we do first? First, we see these bubble factors before watching at the ranges, at the changes, and we see, okay, I have like this percentage that happens here. Okay, look, for example, the button confronting with the low jack that covers him has a very high risk premium. But what is this 16.5%? Is that we need 16.5 more equity than normal to go all in against this guy. That's what it means. So we first estimate this impact on our risk of being bust in this moment, analyzing the payout structure, the tournament phase, the stacks, checking the bubble factors, and then we analyze the changes that, of course, you can't remember every like this, for example. You won't remember this, right? No, this is the GP here. You won't remember exactly how to respond with any hand, but you start to see how the changes should be done, right? So when I'm in the bubble, I know that with high risk factors, I have to call much less, so almost no calls, much more 3-bet, but not all in, much polarized, right? So that way you train your head to think like this. And this is the real change. So the key conclusions of this is, first of all, don't memorize ranges. Understand how and why they adjust. Second, the adaptation. The key to mastering tournaments is to constantly adapt your flip-flop ranges. I said a lot about this, but these two are very, very important. And of course, keep studying, experimenting, and evolving your game. How? Like studying these situations, as I said before, and always try to understand more than memorize, right? How to evolve? Well, this is my academy. It's much more for Spanish-speaking people, but you are always welcome to join if you like. And I will open some minutes for questions. I will be answering. So I hope you enjoy this class. Sorry for my English. I was nervous at the beginning because of these troubles with with the guys who tried to sabotage the presentation. Any questions? I guess that we were like answering the questions during the class. So coming up in low stakes, prioritizing on the resources of GTO Wizard. Well, that's a good question. I use both of them, right? I think holding resources is much better to like customizing the solutions. I use it a lot to practice my real situations, because sometimes it's gonna happen that you wanna see like a situation here. You say, okay, I'm near the bubble with an average of 25 lines, but you have to find the solution closer to the real situation you played. And sometimes you can't find, for example, I don't know, you have here 30 blinds and you have to go to a really different situation near the bubble. And holding resources is much better for this. For example, in my classes, I always give, I want to show you something in holding resources. I always give this example of the money bubble. Let's do this like before finishing this class. I always give this example when let's simulate a situation in a bubble and the same situation, no bubble. We have 3 guys with 10 blinds and a chip leader in the small blind who will have 40 blinds, okay? Let's give this situation in GPV, okay? So here we're gonna get the shoving ranges and the calling ranges, of course, and I will simulate the same hand in ICM with 3 people getting to the money. So we're simulating a money bubble, right? So what I want to ask you here in the first situation, when the 2 first guys of 10 blinds fold, the small blind, the chip leader, that have 40 blinds should shove 64% of his hands. So all this he's gonna be showing. And the big blind, as we are in the big blind with 10 blinds, we should be calling with 45% of our hands because we know he's showing a lot of hands, right? This is when we are not close to the bubble, right? We're chip EV, purely chip EV. So he push a lot and we call a lot because of that. So the first question I ask you, now we're on the bubble. This guy that pushes 64% in chip EV, how much percentage he should shove on the money bubble? What do you think? So write it in the chat. Dustin says 100%. Someone else? Less than 15%. The chip leaders show him less than 15%. I'm gonna wait for one more answer. Why you said less than 50%? Yeah, but he's the chip leader. He has 40 blinds and we have 10 on the big blind. Well, it's okay that you answer that because you're gonna learn something really nice here. Look, Ranieri says 80%. Okay, so again, this guy, when he's not close to the bubble, pushes 64% and we should call 44. So look at this on the money bubble. Now he has to show 100%, any 2, right? And this is funny too because look at the EVs, the numbers that we see here with the plus. How much is winning pushing these hands? And you can see with the worst hands, we are winning almost the same that with the really strong hands, right? So if you're not pushing these hands, you're losing a lot of money. You're losing to win a lot of money, right? Yeah, putting pressure on others. So the most important question, apart from this one, is on the chip EV situation, where he pushes 64%, we call 44%. Now on the bubble, we know he pushes 100% any 2. What do you think we can call here in the big blind? Even if we know he's pushing 100%. Just write on the chat the percentage you think we should call. On the chip EV situation, he pushes 64 and we call 45. So now he pushed any 2. How much do you think we can call? Dustin says 25 to 30% or maybe less. Okay, fair enough. The others? 15% Ranieri. Maybe 100% too, because we know that he's doing that. Okay, but no, because he can push 100% of the range because our risk factor against this guy of Bust having 2 other players with 10 BBs, we can see it here. Wait, here you can see the same. Show bubble factors. You see? Look at our bubble factor. 2.35. We need 20% extra equity. So look our answer. We can call with 5.9% of our ranges. And this shows how important is the ICM factor on the tournament strategy. And we can see here that ace 10 suited starts to lose money win chips, but lose money. Ace queen off, if you fold it, I don't mind. It almost wins nothing, the same as 7-7. You see our range. You can fold 30% of the time pair of 7. Ace queen off, you can fold more than half of the times. So it's a good example to finish this class, to look that we are not doing this because we are scared. We are doing this program has no emotions, right? So this program is like made to win money playing tournament poker. So it's a good example of how extreme are the changes during a bubble. Dustin says that holding resources is the best. Yeah, yes, of course we can no lock, but now in GTO Wizard you can also no lock Billions call too. So both are very, very good. Okay, I don't know if Bri want to say something else. For me, I'm very happy with this class. Thank you very much for being here, and we see you. My Instagram is, I will write it on the chat, is Chris.Stival. So I see you there, guys. Thank you very much.